Hello, everyone. For our next session, I'd like to welcome Chris Desjardins to the stage. Chris will be covering the do's and don'ts of resume and interview skills. Chris, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you to Nina and Chris for inviting me to do this presentation. This is a presentation I've given the past couple years to a couple of the university students, so you may have actually heard this recently, but I've heard a lot of feedback, and I've been told that it really helps. So I'm going to share my screen and just give you guys a little bit of a PowerPoint slideshow. Okay, so again, my name is Chris Desjardins. I'm a prosthetist orthotist and a fellow of the Academy. I've been doing this over 15 years, and one of the questions I get a lot is, let's see if this is going to go. There we go. So why am I the one doing this? I've been a residency director for years. I currently switched positions, switched roles to another company. So I'm working with residents, but not as a director at this time, but we'll see. But during my career, I've read hundreds and hundreds of resumes, and as residency director for a different company, every single applicant got a Skype interview before we went into big interviews if they were selected, like with the executive team. So we've done lots and lots of Skype interviews, and some have been amazing, and some were kind of hard to get through. So I'm here to make sure that you guys have one of those amazing and memorable ones. Your job when you do these interviews and when you initiate an interaction with a resume is to get me or the other residency director or the team to pay attention. Full disclaimer, I do not speak for any university. Sorry, that was from my last presentation. The company I work for, I only speak for myself. So as you guys know, you're working on or searching for your next residency. You should already be doing that. And I know that Chris and Nina have given you guys all the resources on how to do your searches. Please follow the rules or recommendations that they give you on how to do that search and how to contact companies through the website. You really want to make sure that you're using the Residency Centralized Application Service. It looks really good to us when you do that. So initial interaction with the resume, you have about 10 seconds to make an impression. You want to make sure that your information is easy to find. The most important information is up front. Your layout is incredibly important. You want to have attention to detail. Every page looks very similar, and that everything is really balanced and pleasing to the eye. I know it kind of sounds silly, but it's kind of like if you have a messy resume, it's like walking in with a big stain on your shirt, okay? And then you want to have something that jumps out. Do you have career highlights, school highlights? And then if you have any errors on your resume, I know it kind of sounds silly with spelling mistakes, but it really does pop, and it's almost like a magnifying glass is on those. So send a resume. I like when people send a cover letter because it's really just like the highlighter. You get to list your couple key skills. Do like 2 quick paragraphs. I'm interested in this job because of what. This is what makes me stand out. These are my key skills, why I'm going to be awesome for you. But you also don't want to write it if it's not going to add value and you're just copying and pasting from your resume. If you send a generic cover letter, it's pretty obvious. And I can tell you a lot of times people will say, I want to work for your company, Chris. And then at the bottom, it says, I look forward to working with other company. So you want to make sure that you proofread everything before you hit send. So let's talk about your resume. The resume, it's your content. You're going to have your header. The objective can be optional. You want to highlight your education, especially because you guys have been working so hard to get to this point right now. List any experiences you have, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in orthotics and prosthetics. You just want to make sure it's relevant and put a good spin. If it's retail, hey, you're great at customer service and speaking with individuals who may not be the happiest at that moment. Any experience that you can put the spin on to make it relevant to orthotics and prosthetics. You're going to list your qualifications and skills, and you can choose to list your references. We'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. So first look. I know this is this isn't really meant to read. I'm just kind of giving you guys an overall impression. If you put, this is actually my resume. I know I'm putting myself out there, but if you can see all the columns are nicely lined, everything is bulleted. Companies I worked for are, every single one of them is underlined. Position is listed underneath it with the start and end date. It's a little out of date. Very easy to find my name, my email, my phone number, and then just where I currently live. I personally put my experience first, followed by my education, and then I talk about organizations, certificates, and skills. I would recommend that candidates for residency push their education first, and then put your experience after. And then when you're working in the field a while, kind of just update your resume and switch those. So again, keep it really clean, professional looking. So when you get to that header, you want to have your full name or what you want to be known as. You could put a nickname in there, but that's, you know, that's something you can talk about with the person when you introduce yourself. You want to make sure that you're leaving just your public information. Please don't give me your full address. I don't need to know what unit number you live in. Just something that you'd be comfortable if it was shared in public. I'm no longer in Maryland, again, outdated, but you can find where I'm currently living, my phone number, and again, a professional email, not something that I made in college is there. So emails are free. Make sure you get an appropriate one. So your education, you put your school, the degree, and your graduation date. If there's anything you want to elaborate underneath it, like I was a distance learning student for my prosthetics program. If you want to add your GPA, go ahead. It either helps or hurts. I look at it if it's there. If you put it there, I might ask you about it. So if you have a lower GPA, I can ask you about it. If you have a really high GPA, sometimes it's impressive and it's just a good check mark, but it's not going to make or break someone, in my opinion. You put your colleges there, but do we really need to put high school at this time, unless there is something the person you're interviewing with may have attended the same high school or you have a connection. Other than that, go ahead and drop your high school. So when you put experience, you want to have your job Y at company X. The first word in each bullet point or column, whatever you choose to do it, needs to bring that position to life. You don't want to say, I worked and did this. I worked in every single line. So evaluate, provide, utilize, collaborated, excuse me. All of these terms, if you're currently in that position, use a current tense. If you have left the position, use a past tense. You want to have successes. You want to go ahead and brag about yourself. So like in this red box, you can see that in 1 year, I had a great success. I increased revenue by a certain amount. I increased prescriptions, gained referral sources, and you want to be able to share your success. And again, I understand that coming from right out of school, you may not have some of this, but again, keep some of this in mind for the future. But you can also use some of this for some of your school experiences. Did you have a really successful or unique patient that you worked with, a candidate that you worked with? Were you able to jump in on a presentation or a study? Go ahead and put all that in there. But you don't want it to read like a job description, like you copied and paste the description. You just want to demonstrate how versatile you are. So when it comes to organizations, certificates, and skills, make sure that you stand out, make sure it's memorable, be prepared to give examples. If you put it on your resume, it is fair game for me to ask about it. So example, I'm a para-triathlon coach. Feel free to people can talk to me about that and ask how I balance that with my O&P life. If you put something on your skills, you notice I say I'm certified in something. I don't say I'm an expert at something. If you say you're an expert or you are certified, you are opening yourself up to questions about those topics. If you say that you programmed the sea leg, I might ask you about that. But you could say you assisted, and then I might just talk about the situation and not ask you specific software questions just to see if you really did it yourself. So you might be challenged a little bit. They might say, describe how you're an active listener, because I put that on there. Well, I can then go and say, I have been studying with the Behavioral Health Society of the Academy and how they talk about OARS and active listening. And I've taken some of those courses. Again, not a shameless plug, but apparently it was a shameless plug. And you can give examples about how that's worked with my practice. So anything you put on there, be prepared to be questioned about, okay? Note on your skills. When you hand your resume, I'm already looking at those skills. So if you say you're detail-oriented or attention to detail, and then, for example, every single column is misaligned, or you use a couple different fonts or something like that, that's not showing me that you're detail-oriented. So I'm already not believing what you're telling me. So keep all that in mind, because you're in the spotlight from the minute you hit submit. So, but again, each one of us is unique. We're not looking for a generic resident. Talk about leadership positions you've had in organizations. Talk about a trip that you went on, whether it was with the Range of Motion Project or a mission trip or whatever is important to you. Talk about your capstone project, uncommon patient experiences, inventions. Talk about whatever. Give me something to ask about. If you give me a generic resume, I will not remember the resume after I put it in the pile 10 seconds later. Okay. So references, please verify with the individual if you give someone's name. It is not fun when that person is surprised that you listed them as a reference. Again, you want to look in your best light. Sometimes I'll find like these examples on resumes that I have clinical experience with such and such prosthetics, and they list particular clinicians. Someone talked about this awesome research project that they did with one of the professors at the University of Hartford. Well, I've met her. I could call her up and ask how you did, even if it's just on your resume. So you can give intentional references as a reference sheet, or sometimes when you list other people on your resume, again, you're opening yourself up. It's a small field. We probably, if I don't know them, I know someone who knows that particular person that you listed. So check your spelling. When you are in Word, those red lines are your friends. Verify the names and organizations. Check all the emails, that you're about to send, any correspondence that you provide. Just check your spelling. For example, these are some of the interesting comments I've had in the past. Ability is the company. Oh, hold on. Let me back up. Sorry. Spelling prosthetics wrong. My name is completely spelled wrong. My title is incorrect. If you're going to, again, this person said they delivered the sea leg. Well, now I'm about to ask you questions about programming, not just that you were there. Again, you're opening yourself up. But make sure that you verify the manufacturers, how they write their name. Verify the content. If you're going to apply to someone, you should at least read through their entire website to know who you're applying to, or talk to people in the field to learn more about them. Someone said, I'm looking forward to rotating through all the 6 offices in Maryland. Well, we had 3. So that tells me right there that you're not paying attention. Someone said, I'm really excited about the possibility to work at Walter Reed. That was actually our competitor who had the Walter Reed contract. So again, if you're going to say something, just verify that it's accurate. This right here, again, my resume, this is what I do to a resume before I even meet with someone for an interview. You can see there's lots of highlighting, there's comments on the side, questions I'm going to ask. So again, make everything easy to find. So here's thoughts on a couple other resumes that I've received. And again, everything has been completely wiped out, and every person I talked to was incredibly nice. And they had really interesting commentary and stories, but it just didn't show on this resume. So had I not had the policy of calling everyone to have that 15-minute Skype interview, I never would have followed up with this person. They gave me a generic objective. Their contact information was there. They had a single job listed with just 2 lines of job description. It did not actually list anything that they did. It looked like it was right out of from Indeed.com. The skills are all very generic. And then they just, listed their school and references, but there was nothing that made it about them. There was nothing I could ask about and make it memorable. So then I had this one, and this was by an absolutely amazing resident who had really awesome information on her resume. She had a previous career, talked about that. We saw some really interesting, I'm sorry, and this is a screenshot from Words. That's why you're seeing all the red. She got to work with some really interesting upper extremity amputees, was able to talk about that. She did presentations. She's bilingual or trilingual. And we were able to discuss all of that. But when it's listed like this, everything was really hard to find, even though it was amazing, memorable information. So she went ahead and revamped it. This is how it was done in a more liberal arts world. And again, we're just a little more clean in this field. So again, I don't want to say this wasn't taken seriously, because I obviously read and interviewed well with her, but it's just, you want to make sure everything is just really clean and easy to find. So ask friends and colleagues to review your resume. Check your file name. Make sure it doesn't say resume for so-and-so O&P if you're sending it to me. Verify the attachments that you might be sending over. I had someone who was applying to become a neuropath, sent me their application to school instead of sending me their residency application. Save it as a PDF, because you don't know what version of Word or if they're going to open with Google Docs or how they're going to do it, and you want everything to display the way you want it to. This is a very small field, so people are going to know each other, and they'll know someone who knows you. You don't have to send a thank you note, but again, it's just another point of contact. If you send that follow-up email or follow-up thank you, and that person has spent an hour reading through resumes, you're putting your name back to the front of the pile again. And to the point where they might even pull your resume back up. And then just do everything you can to catch their eye, okay? So right now, I also wanted to point out, if you have social media, which most of us do, and you are job hunting, please lock everything down, because people are going to Google you, and they're going to figure out whether you're on Facebook or Instagram or whatever to try to get a sense of you. Again, all unofficially, but just lock everything down. You can figure out when to open it up after you've procured a position. So when you're doing your applications, go ahead and read the individual company websites, again, to make sure that you know the company you're applying to. Follow the directions. This was taken from one of the companies I worked for, and it says, oh, goodness, I'm so sorry, how to apply. So follow that directions. This is your first impression that you have with someone submitting this application, and then they get your resume. We've had people email the CEO directly with their resume when on the website it specifically says how to apply. So you need to follow those directions, because it's a couple points down that we know that you're not following what you're supposed to be doing. So, okay, so great. You get the interview, schedule it as soon as possible. Okay, even if you have to shift some things around. If someone is offering to meet with you in the next couple of days, switch your schedule if at all possible. A lot of times I wouldn't have an issue if someone had coursework, but if a couple of times like, oh, I'm going to go on vacation the next week and a half. Cool. That's telling me this isn't important to have 15 minutes out of your vacation. Now, again, if you're out of the country or something, explain that. Okay. Ask, if you can talk about how long the interview is going to be and just kind of set expectations. A lot of times this may be offered or volunteered. Verify the time zone, especially because everything is being done, or a lot is being done virtually these days. Make sure you know if you're making the phone call or are they calling you. And then also just make sure that your technology works. So you have that initial 5 seconds. And if they're to make that first impression. So dress as you would to an in-person interview. I understand that you might just do that from the waist up, but make sure you don't stand up or something like that during your interview for any reason. So as a general rule, I say just dress entirely head to toe. That way you don't have to stress about that. Your body language is everything. Be present. Look at the webcam as though you're sitting across from someone, and really create a presence. I know I talk with my hands a lot. People will verify I do that in person. But if I sit very formally, I look very stiff and I don't look engaged. If I try to change that about myself. So I roll with it and it works for me. So figure out what works for you. And if you're unsure, call someone. Zoom is cheap or free. You have access to other options. Call people that you might not see every day and do some practice work with them. And really just be yourself. I want to hire a person. I want to know your personality before I hire you. So video interviews, know your resume, practice it, don't memorize it. Yes, you can have it in front of you, but I don't want you reading something to me. Learn the company. I know I've said that a bunch of times by now, but it really happens a lot that people don't verify the company they're applying for. Create your list of questions because you're interviewing them for your residency experience just as much as they're interviewing you. Stay engaged throughout the entire presentation. Sorry, I'm still in the office. And generally, the interviewer might have set aside time to have multiple interviews. So make sure that you're memorable and they remember you, whether you were the first, the middle, or the last. Okay. So preparation, set up your space in advance. I don't want to see the first minute trying to get connected. Or had people would call the office because they couldn't get connected because they didn't download the right program. So check your tech, do a test run. Again, call up a friend. You want to make sure there's not a lot of distractions. There's a clean background and professional attire. Okay, we discussed that. No distractions, just like I have the cleaning crew here right now that I didn't realize they were here. So again, you want to be aware of your location. But it doesn't matter what's happening off the screen. So this is how I would give interviews because the computer that I had the video camera down by the keyboard. So I had to elevate everything. And no one ever saw that. I'd have stuff all over the conference room table, wrap towels, lift up my computer, and you have no idea. So it's really just know what you're presenting during the interview. So I say that because I've had backgrounds like this multiple times during these interviews. I'd rather see a clean background than some filter, okay? Because what if the filter turned off in the middle and you had your messy bed behind you? So again, it's much easier to kind of have a simple nondescript background. Find that quiet place. Again, I was not a good example today. I've had people do interviews in empty classrooms. I even had a great interview with a gentleman sitting on the floor of his closet because he had 2 young children at home. And it was pouring rain, so they couldn't go outside. So he was hiding out in his closet, and it, felt comfortable enough to tell me that later on. It was funny, but do what you need to do to be distraction free, and also turn your cell phone off and down. And again, please don't have a messy bedroom. So as far as lighting and angles are concerned, I can't tell you the number of times people have interviewed and all I do is look up their nose. So I don't get to see their, I know they're not looking at themselves to see how they're presenting. I know they didn't take the couple minutes to make those adjustments to their computer. And then I don't get to see their facial expressions in their entirety, which is the point of having these face-to-face interviews. And then check your light. We just want to make sure you're not crazy backlit. Because then again, I get to see your face for this. That's the point. So be really flexible. Just roll with everything. Occasionally, we've had to delay interviews by a couple minutes if there was a patient emergency. Just be gracious if it does happen, because this is the field that you're trying to get into. So just remain polite. It's few and far between, and I bet you that person who's supposed to interview you feels really horrible about it. But how you handle yourself is very telling. I've had a case where a candidate spilled their entire cup of coffee. And again, they handled it with a lot of grace. I could tell it kind of unnerved them, but they didn't jump up swearing or anything like that. We just rolled with it. I actually called a gentleman at the wrong time. He was in a different time zone, and I didn't realize that. I didn't confirm that because his resume said he was in my time zone, but I neglected to realize that he was going to be at school that day in a different time zone. So I called him an hour early, and he was incredibly nice. Answered. I said I'd give him a call back in an hour, and just handled himself so well. He eventually ended up working for us. So check your tech, prep your area, and really be yourself for interviews. And then just good luck and congratulations, guys. It's awesome to get this far. So I look forward to seeing you in the field. And let's see.
Great. Thank you, Chris. That was fantastic. A great overview. We just have a minute or two for questions. So if you folks have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section. I have one for you while we wait for some questions to come in. So you showed a couple of resume formats. How creative can people get? Should it be super corporate looking, only black and white, or is it okay to have a little bit of color, some art? What are your thoughts on that?
So, I have had people use color intentionally, and like they use it as to highlight. Now they're not highlighting a success. It might just be headers or something along that. Now I wouldn't recommend like pink and floral. And again, it was an amazing person, amazing interview, and I'm really excited that she's in our field. But you want to make sure you're still looking pretty professional. It does not have to be as crazy corporate as mine is. So I know mine's just black and white and blank, but it gets the job done. And that's, I don't want to say what I was raised on, but I am older. So it's easier to update. But yeah, if you do have color, just use it intentionally and sparingly, and make it an accent, like to accentuate a point. So.
Yeah, I love that suggestion. Thank you. Looks like we have a couple questions on the Q&A. Maybe we'll get to one of them with the remaining time. Do you have suggestions for length of resume? Is there a hard cutoff for page number in your mind?
There really isn't. If it's a bunch of filler and it looks like you copied and pasted a job description to get 2 full pages or even 3 pages, I'm going to notice. Okay. But I don't want you shoving everything onto one page. So it really is dependent that the jobs that you put, that the extracurriculars, the hobbies, the volunteering all make sense that it should be there. It gives me something to talk about. So I want it there, but I also don't want everything in an 8-point font just to get it on the first page. So again, it's just be intentional. And yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know we didn't get to all the questions. You're welcome to pop over to the ENCODE booth tomorrow or Friday, and we'd be happy to help you with those. But really popular session, looks like, Chris. Thank you so much. And we'll see you folks on the next one.
Thank you so much.